Paul Verhoeven's RoboCop was an iconic action film from the 1980s, pushing the boundaries with its over-the-top violence, memorable one-liners, and impressive special effects. Despite several attempts to revive the series, including a lackluster 2014 reboot, nothing quite captured the elusive essence of the original until now. RoboCop Rogue City manages to achieve something remarkable. It's not just a solid first-person shooter set in the RoboCop universe, it masterfully captures the look and feel of the beloved film. This game represents the most authentic adaptation the series has ever witnessed. The narrative may not break new ground, a villain who could easily fit the role of Die Hard's Hans Gruber, and it's up to you to stop him. The OCP remains a corrupt corporation, and the streets are still under the rule of drug-fueled gangs. If you've ever watched an old-school action movie set in a city, the story's beats will feel familiar. RoboCop himself navigates well-trodden territory, with the remnants of Officer Alex Murphy continuing to grapple with a blurred line between man and machine, aided by a therapist this time. In this video, we will dive deep into the plot of RoboCop Rogue City, so without further ado, let's begin, shall we? But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin.
You hear me?
You work so hard, honey. Why don't you take some leave? We all could use a little break from this reality, don't you think?
Wakey, wakey! I'm talking to you!
The Malfunctions. The game starts in a typical Detroit from the RoboCop universe, where crime reigns supreme, and RoboCop and the Detroit police do their best to control this crime. A news report shows that a gang named the Torchheads has killed at least 21 police officers. Why? So that they could get the attention of someone only referred to as the new guy. Well, it seems that this person wants to do business with the criminals of Detroit, and Torchheads use the cop murders to show that they can do anything that the new guy wants, be it arson, drug dealing, or the good old-fashioned murder. The leader of the Torchheads, named Sooth, goes a step further and takes hostage a newsroom crew, only to overdose one officer, Howard, who made a drug bust. You see, the Torchheads were the #1 supplier of a highly potent and extremely addictive drug called Nuke, and this was the Torchheads' way of punishing Officer Howard. Nevertheless, RoboCop and Lois, along with other officers, arrive on the scene. But OCP wanted them to wait for a SWAT team before going in. But as we all know, RoboCop is the backup anyone would ever need. He and Lewis march in, taking off the bad guys one by one. Upon reaching the studio on the 30th floor where Sooth and the hostages were present, Murphy and Lewis learned that Sooth had already escaped in a chopper. But to make things worse, RoboCop suffered a major glitch as he saw visions of his wife and a lady who was being held at gunpoint by a Torchhead member. He did not protect the lady, and it was ultimately Lois who sprung into action. The entire incident was recorded on video by one of the hostages, and soon everyone in Detroit learned about RoboCop's little glitch. Naturally, OCP's old man wanted RoboCop to be brought in for an evaluation so that the issue could be fixed. He was given a minor upgrade by Engineer Morgan. Also, police psychologist Olivia Blanche was present to see if RoboCop was willing to talk about his recent experience. You see, a lot of money was spent to fix his body and improve his physical strength, but his mind has always been neglected.
Out of the way. Let me introduce myself. My name is Wendell Antonowski.
The villain. Before RoboCop can make his mind up about therapy, he gets called to a meeting called by the Sarge. It turns out that the new guy was making a move and there was an acute lack of information. Additionally, Officer Briggs has been missing for the past 24 hours. Although there was no reason to believe that these two cases were connected, the Sarge sent RoboCop to meet the informer of Officer Briggs, who could divulge new information. RoboCop came to an arcade, which was actually one of the fronts for Sooth and his men to run the drug trade. At this point, the players can ask the informer, Pickles, multiple questions, and the conversation gives two important pieces of information. First, we get to know that Sooth and the new guy were planning to meet at Sooth's concert, yet the gang leader was a bit of a musician. Second, Pickles had no idea about Briggs' whereabouts, but he did have Briggs' expensive watch in his possession, which he wanted RoboCop to return to Briggs' family. But RoboCop would not return a stolen item to its owner, so he asks Pickles to meet him at Briggs' house. Mike Briggs' wife, Gail, tells RoboCop an old lady who came to Briggs complaining that her late late husband's body was missing from the morgue. There's a small emotional scene with Briggs' son Daniel. RoboCop and Pickles, where Pickles helps Daniel understand that he should not be hanging out with kids who follow the easy route of crime. Daniel seems like a smart kid and agrees to go home to his mother because with his father missing, she needed some support. Later, RoboCop and Lois intensify their search for Briggs, but they also know that the new guy in Sooth might just be involved in Briggs' disappearance. So, RoboCop and Lois offer Sooth a visit at his so-called concert. RoboCop corners Sooth and asks him about the new guy, but Sooth stays resilient, claiming that with the new guy watching his back, no one could possibly get to him. RoboCop contacts Lois, only to learn that the new guy has taken her hostage. He asks RoboCop to bring in Sooth and take Lois with him, not wasting to risk his partner's life. RoboCop follows the command. This is when we see the new guy for the first time, who kills Sooth for bringing the spotlight on him, and it was quite expected. I mean, Sooth was not someone big on brains, and the new guy in his slick attire wouldn't deal with thugs like Sooth. Interestingly, I couldn't help but remember Alan Rickman's Hans Gruber from the original Die Hard movie when looking at the new guy, who finally reveals that his name was Wendell Antonowski, the brother of Emil Antonowski from the first RoboCop movie. Curiously enough, Wendell had managed to do something that was messing up with RoboCop's systems. In fact, RoboCop couldn't control his own body and soon found himself on the ground, struggling to even get up.
Control. Ed, stand there!
Authorized to use physical force.
RoboCop fight alongside Ed 209. Wendell had somehow found a way of getting inside RoboCop's head, you see. He believed that the cyborg cop should give up being attached to the only part that was human, his brain. He narrates the story of how he let go of his hatred for RoboCop after he heard about Emil's death because that gave RoboCop power over him. As a gift to RoboCop that would relieve him of all human attachments and baggage, Wendell shot Lois in the gut before escaping. An unconscious RoboCop and a seriously injured Lois were later rescued by the cops. RoboCop was brought in for a psych evaluation because he had suffered another glitch while Lois was undergoing surgery. Unfortunately for RoboCop, he was not allowed to leave and see Lois or go after Wendell because his malfunction had become a pattern. So Olivia Blanche was forced to do a psych eval for RoboCop, although she knew very well that he was in no state to do that. Nevertheless, since RoboCop's only options were a psych eval or dismantling, he chose the former. During the evaluation, Olivia revealed that she herself has a prosthetic arm because Ed 209 once considered her a threat during a robbery in her own home. Olivia let RoboCop go and he came to meet Max Becker, but Becker was going paranoid about RoboCop's situation, so he assigned a rookie officer named Washington to become Murphy's overseer. However, Becker removed Murphy from all active cases and sent him down to the archives and maintenance rooms. But after discovering information about Briggs, he started off for Highland Park, the turf of another gang called the Street Vultures. Officer Washington arrived just in time to warn Murphy about such actions. Furthermore, Becker had forbidden Murphy from pulling such stunts. RoboCop was absolutely correct. The Vultures had taken Briggs because he had trespassed into their turf. Briggs had been killed. Next thing we know, RoboCop and Ed 209 were fighting hand in hand against the Street Vultures. It all went smoothly. I mean, it was bloody as hell, but RoboCop managed to get his hands on the Vulture leader. Unfortunately, the Ed 209 malfunctioned and RoboCop had to take him down, which also allowed the Vulture leader to escape.
I'm not your enemy. If I were, you would have already...
You have the right to an attorney.
Project Afterlife. Interestingly, while visiting Lois at the hospital, RoboCop learned that Wendell and his crew of vultures had been collecting bodies for some unknown reason. You see, they even broke into the morgue of the hospital Lois was in and stole 30 bodies, but only those who had their brains intact. And the hospital security camera caught Wendell at the scene. The cops now knew who the perps were and what they wanted. During a briefing at the station, Sergeant Reed was asking his team to buckle up and find the vultures, but their search was cut short by news that the vultures were robbing the OCP bank. RoboCop and a SWAT team barged in, but the criminals had attached the bomb to one of the OCP bank staff, which RoboCop defused with Washington's help. But the vulture leader Spike had contacted RoboCop and agreed to talk under suitable conditions. Also, Pickles had volunteered to help the cops in any way he could because he was sorry about Briggs' murder. That's not all. There are two more developments. First, Becker sent RoboCop to search a house, which could have been the ground for corporate espionage. Also, the old man himself had expressed his wish to meet RoboCop. Old Man reveals that the construction of Delta City was about to begin, but nothing more. RoboCop also recruits Pickles to find information on Spike, but Pickles led RoboCop in the right direction. RoboCop first went to a mechanic to ask if some bikers came in to have their bikes fixed. The mechanic led him in the direction of a tattoo artist who led RoboCop straight to Spike, who had been tied to a chair by his own men, much like Briggs. And now Spike was ratting Wendell out. Eventually, RoboCop got a hold of Wendell and had him arrested. One thing we learned here was that Wendell's Zippo lighter had something to do with RoboCop's malfunction. Also, it turns out that Wendell was actually working for Becker, who asked RoboCop to meet him. Another seemingly suspicious character seems to be Olivia, who was being way too helpful to RoboCop. Another little development was that the old man had suffered a heart attack and was brought to the hospital where Lois was. RoboCop came to talk to the old man, who warned him to be wary of Becker. However, Becker was not the mastermind kind of guy. Becker introduced a new set of robots who posed a threat of making the cops go out of jobs, and is staple with RoboCop movies. They were once again talking about a possible cop strike. RoboCop comes to meet Wendell in the prison. Wendell revealed some really important information about why he was harvesting dead people's brains. You see, OCP was working on a project called Afterlife. Wendell did not provide any other information, but I assume the name Afterlife is self-explanatory. Wendell's interview with RoboCop could not be completed because he had to be taken by the guards on account of a prison riot. Wendell uses the distraction to escape the prison, but not before telling RoboCop that he had sent men to kill Lois. But of course, Officer Lois was one tough bird. Meanwhile, dissent was brewing in the hearts of the cops regarding the motives of OCP and the fact that OCP did not care about the lives of the cops. How could they be possibly working for guys who were against them? Additionally, Olivia Blanche's research on RoboCop was all gone. She contacts RoboCop to tell him about the same and tells him that no one in the OCP could really be trusted. He asks her to meet him at the Star Motel. This was more or less the beginning of the third act of the story. Things are about to come a full circle. The final battle. RoboCop rescues Olivia and puts her in the safe hands of Lois before going to the OCP headquarters to find out more about Afterlife. However, news came in that the old man passed away and Becker was the acting CEO. In that capacity, he shut down all of OCP's pet projects like Afterlife and Delta City. He even fired the entire police force so that he could replace the cops with his brainless robots. Becker made a fool of himself at an arms expo, and to make things worse, Becker took control of the rest of Becker's robots. RoboCop's condition was getting worse because of Becker's lighter, which actually was a weapon that could mess with RoboCop's brain. The cops found out that OCP sabotaged RoboCop, but they rescued him and brought him to the station. With the cops gone, Wendell's forces took over the streets of Detroit. It came on air to provoke the people to bring in anarchy and take control of their lives, their city, and everything else. Riots and arsons had spread like wildfire. First thing they did was rescue the new mayor of Detroit, after which RoboCop went after Wendell for a final battle. Wendell tried to use his lighter against RoboCop. However, Officer Washington had taken care of the problem. Wendell asked his mercenaries to kill RoboCop, but he hadn't paid him, so they left his side and let RoboCop deal with Wendell. In the end, RoboCop finally took down Wendell, but he was just a pawn working for OCP. In fact, his real name wasn't even Wendell. That was just an identity that OCP gave to him to get RoboCop emotional, but this was not the climatic battle. That one takes place a little later between RoboCop and RoboCop 2, which the old man had taken control of using Project Afterlife. Of course, that did not go well for the RoboCop 2 or the old man's undead conscience. Gameplay. In RoboCop Rogue City, you step into the formidable metallic shoes of RoboCop, tasked with a mission to cleanse the city of criminals, conduct intricate investigations, and even hand out parking tickets. The action takes place between the events of RoboCop 2 and RoboCop 3, and you won't be alone in this journey, as Ann Lewis, RoboCop's trusty police partner from the films, joins you in this endeavor. The game offers a decent list of side quests that presents you with choices on how to tackle them. Your decisions, including various dialogue options, shape the outcomes of these quests. Whether you opt for a peaceful approach or resort to force when dealing with suspects, your choices ripple through the overall storyline and even determine the game's ending. Building up RoboCop's public trust score by interacting with citizens plays a pivotal role in influencing your gameplay experience. RoboCop wields his iconic Auto 9 gun as the primary weapon, which has unlimited ammunition. Additionally, you can pick up weapons dropped by enemies, although their usage is limited. Engage in some environmental chaos by hurling items like exploding barrels and television collision sets around. Thanks to RoboCop's metallic armor, gunfire inflicts only minimal damage, and you can even regenerate health or use foes as human shields against hostile fire. From the outset, you're equipped with several abilities including night vision and a flashbang shockwave. When the going gets tough, you can briefly slow down time to eliminate enemies swiftly and clear areas efficiently. As you progress, these abilities along with the Auto 9 can be enhanced. You can employ a scanning ability to pinpoint enemies and identify misdemeanors such as traffic violations or disorderly conduct, keeping the city in check. Marvelous verdict. For the fans of RoboCop, RoboCop Rogue City comes highly recommended without any reservations. The game serves as a heartfelt tribute to the franchise, treating its iconic hero with the respect and gravitas he deserves. It delves into the broader concept and themes with a creative flair that maintain the satire and humor that are integral to RoboCop's essence. This delicate balance sets it apart from many other RoboCop follow-ups that have often missed the mark. Having Peter Weller reprise his role is a source of joy for fans, and the plot pays homage to the original film while wisely drawing from the best elements of its lesser sequel. However, newcomers and those not well versed in the world of RoboCop might find that the gameplay is somewhat lacking. RoboCop Rogue City isn't a cutting-edge blockbuster FPS with an unlimited budget, and its graphics and gameplay may not meet the expectations of modern gamers. Nevertheless, its strengths lie in its compelling storytelling, diverse content, innovative upgrade system, and a narrative that flows seamlessly with a dash of flavor. The game captures the essence of the original RoboCop with its iconic score, intense firefights, engaging quest lines, and a nostalgic touch reminiscent of the 90s. These qualities make you overlook occasional shortcomings like awkward facial animations or less exciting boss battles. Each chapter in RoboCop Rogue City offers something intriguing to explore, an unexpected challenge to tackle, or a clever reference to uncover. In the end, it's a remarkable game that fulfills all the expectations of an adaptation, breathing fresh life into its source material and setting a new standard for the franchise. If you like the content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.